Då blickar vi framåt och för er som har tittat ordentligt i dagens broschyrprogramblad så har ni sett att nästa talare, Buhl Jensen, har en relation med 2 bolag här idag. Ett bolag har precis pratat. Det var Wind Research. Och nu så ska vi få stifta bekantskap med Oncology Ventures. Ett bolag som jag tror att ingen utav er faktiskt har lärt känna tidigare. Om det är så är det ett väldigt fåtal. Men detta är ett bolag som Sedermera fondkommission arbetar med och som kommer att komma ut med en listningsemission under maj-juni månad. Så att det här är första tillfället för er att stifta bekantskap med bolaget och lyssna på bolagets framtida planer. Jag lämnar ord och bild till Buhl Jensen. Varsågod.
Tack Peter. Goddag. Jeg hedder Buhl Jensen og er professor i klinisk onkologi på Rigshospitalet i København. Og jeg vil gøre som Niels Brynner forut, så jeg vil skifte til engelsk. Men jeg vil selvfølgelig gerne have frågor på svensk og forsøge at svare, men det bliver vel mest på engelsk. Mest for jeres skyld, tror jeg. Jeg har haft den glæde at få lov at gå fra klinisk onkologi og få lov at stifte et bolag, eller to make a company, I'll switch to English, make a company TorgetTorget in 2002, where I was overlægger på Rigshospitalet i København. We had made a lot of research for a long time, and we were allowed to actually make our company at the Rigshospitalet. And we've been making actually 2 products that have been approved by FDA and also EMA. And that is, I think, very proud about that. And also, I think the attrition, if you think about the number of drugs in oncology that is being developed, we can hear it all over. There are many products. And Oncology Venture is developed with a technology that I met when I was the CEO of TorgetTorget, and we were looking at 10 different products. We have selected one product that really thought this is a product that's going to give us clinical data, that's going to give us the effects that we want. And in order to find the patients, we did 22 clinical trials with the product. Eventually, we were successful. We had a 26% response rate in patients with peripheral T-cell lymphoma. That is a very rare disease. But it was approved this summer in the US for peripheral T-cell lymphoma, even if it only works in 26% of the patients, because it's a very serious disease. There's nothing else that these patients can be treated with. So you can say the number of products, the likelihood that you will have your product approved is not very high. There's so many products in development, but there's also so much optimism in the marketplace. What you can say is that I agree completely with Niels Brynner, what he said before. The metastatic process, as Wind Research is working on, is extremely important. I'm chairman of Wind Research, so of course I support it also, but a lot of other products, or almost other products, are targeting directly to the cancer cell. And so was belinostat that we were developing in TorgetTorget. And I was approached by Professor Knudsen, who invented the stuff that we are doing in Oncology Venture. He said that he knew that we should use belinostat in peripheral T-cell lymphoma, and also that he could find the responding patients. Så han kunne altså finde de patienter, som ville få gavn af produktet belinostat, som vi udviklede blandt 10 andre muligheder. Peter han viser, at jeg skal gå helt frem til kanten og falde ned. Ja. Men han havde ret, so he was right. It was approved in peripheral T-cell lymphoma. I just didn't believe him at that time point, so we could actually have saved a lot of money, and we could have saved also patients being treated with a product that didn't work. if we had listened to Professor Knudsen. I left TurboTarget in 2010. I was approached by Professor Knudsen saying, would I be CEO of this company? And I said I was really biased because he had demonstrated clearly that he could see who would respond. I have to tell you also that we did a study in leukemia in Germany where we also was a little reluctant to use his technology. We had 4 patients responding with leukemia in Germany, 4 out of 13. And we asked Knudsen to look at the genes, and he actually said, here, this is the likelihood of response, and correctly predicted those 4 that responded. So that is a technology that I would like to bring forward, and it is a technology that can help us actually take products that, not like belinostat that was actually approved, but if belinostat had only had 18% response rate instead of 26% response rate, we wouldn't have had a chance to have it approved by the FDA. The agreement with the FDA was that we need to demonstrate a 20% response rate or else your product's not going to be approved. There's no discussion if you have 18%. We had 26, so it was approved. But think about there is actually only 2.5% of products that are in development are eventually approved. So there are a lot of products out there that really looks interesting, that gives responses in patients, but are not approved, and that is basically because we can't see the difference between patients, and this is what Knudsen could do, using mathematical models to identify who actually responded. I'll go down here because I also need to see the slides, as Niels had the same. So the problem, I've talked to you about it, that a lot of cancer drugs only benefit few patients, but these patients actually benefit tremendously if they're getting the right products. And you can say also in clinical studies that the lack of effect that this is basically why we stop development of products. And many of these products, it's not the product as such, but it's the difficulty in actually finding the patients. Niels Brunner also talked to you about the statistics of cancer deaths. We know it's a big disease. And what we know is that we now know that all tumors are different. Every tumor is really different. Every patients are different. So even if we have a patient with a breast cancer, we cannot be sure that it's the same cancer that this patient over here has. So you can say cancer is personal, personic. It's a very specific disease when we have cancer. And what we are aiming for is, of course, that the cancer patient should have the most effective treatment as possible for his or her treatment. And we will need individualized therapy for the patients. So the problem is, what is going to work, and will it gavne? What do you call it? Gavne? Gavne. Sorry. Gavne patienten. Kommer behandling 2 att gavne patienten? Och i dag finns there is really so many products approved out there that you can say that the opposite is also. Maybe this breast cancer patient would actually benefit from sorafenib. This product is usually only used for kidney cancer, for nyre cancer. Maybe this patient looks more like a kidney cancer in her breast cancer than the other cancer patients. So this is, you can say, a lot of products out there where the cancer doctor has a decision, and always, you can say, today decides based on epidemiology. Say, if we give this product, it's going to work in 30% of the patients. So this is why I give this product. It's the best product we have to the population here. So the solution, I think, is this drug response prediction. And this is from a company where I'm also CEO, Medical Prognosis Institute, and we are now making Oncology venture to use drug response prediction that was developed by Professor Knudsen. We are listed in First North Copenhagen, and this is, you can say, a diagnostic company. What Oncology venture does is to take the method and look at products that you can say, like belinostat, but products that almost did it, products that were not approved, products som inte kunde bli godkänd because they didn't have enough activity. So it can be 10% in peripheral T-cell lymphoma, or 20% or 18% in peripheral T. So it will be products that are not strong enough. Oncology venture can, you can say, focus and not treat the patients that will not benefit from the therapy, and focus and give the product to the patients that will benefit. And that's the technology that we have. So it comes from cancer cells that we can grow cancer cells in the lab. And this is the basis for Professor Knudsen's invention that he saw. He's an engineer, and he just basically took that, and because you can measure sensitivity for cancer chemotherapy, and you can measure how the genes are expressed here. That's basically that's standard. But what Professor Knudsen did was that he moved this into something useful. And you can say that the gene expression is a language that is common between the cancer cells and the patient. And this is basically what we're looking at. How are the genes being read? And we're using mathematical models to look at this. 25,000 genes in the patient. We're using mathematical models to see which patients are actually vulnerable for this particular product. And this is a bit technical, but when you take a product and look into 60 different cancer cell lines, you always get a pattern like that, and that actually reflects the mechanism of action of the product. And that's the basis for Professor Knudsen's invention, is to say, if I have a product's profile on cancer cell lines, I can actually go here and say, I can use the sårbarhed og genmønster, I can use my mathematics, and then he took what you call a filter. So he made a filter for clinical relevance, basically looked at 3,000 patients and said, what is cancer? What genes is cancer using? And how does it work? Because this is, of course, in the lab, and the patient is different from the lab. But he said, I want to look at cancer. What is cancer actually doing? And then filter, you can say, noise away from that. And that is, I think, where he was really, really lucky and brainy. And you can translate the gene pattern into response odds. What is the likelihood that this tumor is going to respond? So normally, we look like over here, when we look at a product, we like to see this in our biochemistry books, how it works and how it eventually will kill the cancer cell. And this is sort of textbook stuff. But when we look at Knudsen's, he says, yes, but it's just much, much more complicated. So here he says there are 680 different proteins involved in deciding whether the cancer cell should die or not. So that's where we have to accept that this is mathematics, and we need to have people who can do that kind of calculation, and that's what Professor Knudsen can do. So what you can say is the changes that we today see patients, this could be patients with triple negative breast cancer that we would all treat with a particular product because we know it works in 30% of the cases. And we just can't see the difference between the patients. But with the response predictor, we can change the odds here. So basically, we put in technology, we can see the response likelihood, and then we can see how different the different patients are. And then, of course, also, we can go on and say, okay, we will select only the patients that are vulnerable for our product. So this is where Oncology Venture wants to work, is to say we want to have products that was not able to beat the gold standard, that were not able to be approved. We want those products, we want to have ownership of that products. We want to borrow them also, you could say, from the product owner. But we want to create a system where we can find out who will actually benefit from that product and who will not. And that is what we can give back to the product owner, and we will together benefit from that. So we expect to have 40 or 50% of the ownership of such products, because products that are not approved, if belinostat had not been approved by FDA, we would not have been able to sell it to anybody in the whole world, or in the US at that time. But it needs to be locally, it needs to be approved in your country in order to be used. If it's not approved, you can't use the product, so it's valueless. So what we can take is, you can say, take a product and actually switch it from zero to hero. You can always say that you can change the product so that it's useful instead of being not used to patients. And it's going to benefit the patients as well. This is our product in TurboTarget that we actually had approved. But remember that we were in 1,000 patients, that we were in 22 clinical trials, and we were also lucky. I think we were skilled, but we were also lucky to get the 26% response rate. In the US, it's sold, it gives an 8 months increase in survival, and the price is also very high. You pay $42,000 per month for such a product. You have to have it for at least 3 months before you know that it's not going to work. And if it works, you'll probably have it for 8 months. So you can say, if your insurance doesn't cover that, you probably have to sell your house to save your wife. And this is how tough it is. But it's also, of course, demonstrating the value if we would be able to take a product that did not have, but have maybe, say, a 13% response rate, and take that and put it up to a 39% response rate by only taking the 25% most likely responding. We could change the product from zero to hero. This is the product where Professor Knudsen said, why don't you go into peripheral T-cell lymphoma? He is correct. Peripheral T-cell lymphoma is not a very common, it's a rare cancer. I think there's probably 200 different cancers you could say, and he said that, and he was right. So we made a deal with Spectrum, and this is me in a younger version, and we actually were able to make a wonderful deal with selling the product for the American market and getting $30 million up front and a total value of $350 million on such a product when it works and when you can have it approved. So sammenfattningsvis kan man see, with belinostat that we did, if we'd had the DRP, we could have done the development in TurboTarget in 5 years instead of 12 years. Remember, a patent life is 20 years. So saving 7 years here is a huge saving or a huge income for a company. Basically, you can say net present value of a product would increase tenfold if we had had that technology at that time point. So this, I mean, taking old products and making them successful had really transformed companies before. This is not companies, they didn't use our technology, that's new, but they found they had other technologies. Celgene found the old drug thalidomide. Do you recall thalidomide, the terrible thing that was giving problems with babies born without arms and legs? Basically, that product is not for pregnant women, but it is for multiple myeloma, and it really changes that disease. And that put Celgene to be a multi-billion-dollar company. This is Cephalon. They found a product in Eastern Germany that was used in lymphoma. Nobody believed them. They put it into American patients, and it worked wonderfully, and it transformed the company. $2 billion product, $2 billion dollar companies, basically by taking products and change them from zero to hero. So Oncology Venture is aimed to get the rights on 5 products during the next 3 years. That's what we aim for, that's what we can do. The team is, there's an overlap with the Wind research team. We can do clinical trials. In oncology, in TurboTarget, we did, at some time point, we did 30 different clinical trials at one time. We're not nervous about this situation. We have, of course, a selection of the product. What kind of products do we want to have? How do we want that? How we move that forward? We already have some good products, but we also need financing to go really out and scout for products and also for making good deals on those products for the future. The first patient come into the first product, we expect that to be at the end of this year, and then every half year we start another with our different drug candidates that's going to be taken in. We already have another one, APO10, and we may also move that forward. So it's moving. The team, you've already met Niels Brunner, who's helpful here also. We also have down below, we have Nikolai. Nikolai, maybe you can stand up, show your face. Nikolai is a CFO and has been very, very instrumental for building Oncology Venture. And Ulla Buhl is also helping Wind Research clinical trials, but will also help us here. We have in the top also, we have Dan van Hoff, professor in Phoenix. He's helped us. He helped me many years ago when I was at Rigshospitalet when we started drug development. He is a very experienced. He's looked at more than 400 different drugs, and is still a very, you can say, successful drug developer. We have Sten Knudsen, who did the background, who is also the founder of MPI. We have, I think we mentioned, we have James in Boston, and Annie, who helped us also in Topotarget. This is a Pfizer product for kidney cancer, and you can see that he has this tattoo. It's 6.7 months of median progression-free survival versus the control, which is 4.7. So they actually, it's a 2 months survival advantage to these patients. It's an ad from a Journal of Clinical Oncology. A progression-free survival advantage of 2 months, enough to win the market. It's just telling you, I mean, how dramatic the whole battle in cancer is. What we have, the first candidate is irofulven. This is a product that has been in 19 clinical trials. There's probably invested more than $200 million in that product. It has, in Xtox cancer, 12% response. In prostate cancer, it has 10% response. We know, of course, about the product because it's been in many clinical trials. And this is a product where we will have 40% ownership when we are successful. So what we aim for, this is actually from a fungus. So it's a you can call natural product that has been cleaned up for treatment. There's a lot of cancer drugs that comes from nature. Taxol and doxorubicin and many products are actually created by plants. And we had, I'm proud to say, we got a grant from Boston and from Copenhagen. First time ever been paid to build relations. We got a grant here a month ago on $800,000 to develop oncology venture and Lantern together to develop irofulven for metastatic breast cancer, supported by Boston. I'm actually proud to get money from Boston. This is the largest biotech hub in the world, and they acknowledge what we're doing here. This is basically how it looks in Sten's system. Here we have there's 3,000 patients here in the database. So it's a small green circle, you can't see that, but there's a lot of different cancers here. And with each cancer type, you can see that there are patients on the top and patients at the bottom. And for each cancer type, we can, of course, not only select what cancer type is most likely to be sensitive, but we can also see where we can look for the patients within the group that are most likely to benefit. This patient here is more likely to benefit than this patient down here, no doubt about that. So we use the technology to screen, and we aim actually to go very aggressive and screen 150 patients with metastatic breast cancer and only treat 15 of these patients. So we get a high response rate from the beginning. Then we can always see how this moves forward. So this is the prostate cancer, the business, you can say, the competing products. There's 3 other products. The price is $40,000 for treatment. And if we can get irofulven into that, this is what we have to expect. And this is the market potential in the US. It's a bit vague, but here you can see prostate cancer patients from our database with all these green circles. And here is the standard chemotherapy that these patients are receiving. It's only helping 1/3 of the patients. Because of this technology here, we can actually look at the patients that would benefit from DocX, but would not benefit from this product. So we can take the patients down here that are not expected to be up here, but are over here in the high sensitivity, and we can take these patients and treat with our product. So it's using mathematical methods in a very complex world, and I think we are doing the right stuff here. So we want to screen 150 patients, having a 10% response rate. We would, of course, expect that 15 of the patients would respond. If we're getting less, you can see when is it significantly better, and what is the price of that. So you can say we can do that for $2 million. That's sort of when we put everything into what it's going to cost to do the screen and do the clinical trial and do the manufacturing. And what are expectations? This is what we did with belinostat, the Spectrum deal. $30 million up front, $350 million in milestones. We, of course, aim to change the product from zero to hero by such a technology. It's difficult for you to see, but this is the background that we have 31 clinical studies. That's from Medical Prognosis Institute. That's the patent that we have in-licensed, and we've in 80% of the cases, we've been able to demonstrate positive, very nice p-values. You can't see it. You have to look at our presentation in more detail. So why invest in Oncology Venture? I think we have a strong and revolutionary technique that we're getting from Medical Prognosis Institute. It certainly would have helped TopoTarget if we had listened. There is an exceptional, you can say, konkurrencefordel, with 80% success in 31 tests. The team, we've done it before. I think it's, I'm very proud of the team that have been able to have sort of join us here. We have already, I mean, we can start now. We aim to have 5 products within the next 3 years evaluated, and expect to have at least 2 out of 5 projects to be fremgangsrike, also meaning that we can make deals with such a product, actually sell the product with what we call a companion diagnostic, meaning a key to how to use the product. And we want to sell that with a DRP there. So that's the background for our new emission. We would like to have your support for bringing these products into clinical success. And we have teknikstid here in June. Ja, så vil jeg sige tak. Jeg vil lige vise jer, at vi har selvfølgelig en patent på metoden, som vi har licens til fra MPI. Ja.
Okej, ett stort tack Peter. Som ni kan se på den avslutande sliden så är Oncology Venture inte ute och har en öppen emission för tillfället, utan Sedermera kommer tillsammans med bolaget att komma tillbaka och göra fler presentationer runt om i landet. Kommer också att då ha ett erbjudande som riktar sig till er, så att det här var ett första tillfälle för er att stifta bekantskap med bolaget här under dagen. Är det någon som har någon fråga? Jag förstår att det kanske känns tidigt än så länge eftersom det är första gången, men jag öppnar upp golvet om det är någon som trots allt vill fråga. Ja, varsågod.
Hi, I'm a bit confused. Should I invest in MPI or Oncology Venture, or if I rephrase, what does MPI gain from this going forward?
So the question is, what should I invest in MPI or in Oncology Venture? I don't think that's a problem. You should invest in both, of course. But MPI, the difference between MPI and Oncology Venture, MPI is I see MPI as a diagnostic company. We hope that Sten Knudsen may develop next technologies. Just basically, MPI is not in a situation where it should develop products. In TopoTarget, we took belinostat all the way, but it also was very, very, very costly, meaning that we had to say goodbye to many employees, that we just focus on getting the development of that product. I think MPI is really a jewel with the technology, but we really don't want to do clinical trials in that setting. So MPI is getting a 10% of all income that comes to oncology. The license is that we pay 10% of all income to MPI. That's the first thing. The next thing that MPI will benefit from is that when we demonstrate proof of concept, this is the fastest route where we can actually demonstrate, you can say aggressively, that MPI is correct. And that's of course going to help the MPI shareholders and Oncology Venture shareholders, because in Oncology Venture, the ownership to that product will be there. So we expect that it's the interests of the two companies are very much aligned. And of course, because we have a lot of the same management, I'm CEO of both companies, it's clear that we need to have governance rules that are very clear. And that means that if there are discussions between MPI and Oncology Venture, everything goes up to the chairman to decide. I cannot decide because I'll be biased in that situation. But both companies will win in that situation.
Okej, tack för det svaret. Ja, ett ögonblick så ska du få en mikrofon.
So, you described in the beginning that there are so many different kinds of cancer treatments, and people are all individual and they need their individual treatment. So, wouldn't this diagnosis technology be useful in that phase of things, not just for developing new?
Right.
And also
Right.
then leading to this, if you now get a new drug out there, wouldn't the doctors need that diagnosis theory to know which patients can they use this drug on?
Right.
Short answer.
This is you can say this is correct, and this is not what Oncology Venture does. Oncology Venture takes products and make them, the aim is to make them successful products that were not successful. MPI is, of course, in a situation where you can come up with personalized medicine and say, here we actually have an answer to your cancer, which would be like 60 different products. What would be the likelihood that what products we really don't think you should have, what products should you have? That's one of the things where MPI differs from Oncology Venture. Oncology Venture is basically taking the fruits of this into drug development and say, we want to take some products and make them successful in Oncology Venture in a very fast way. That was short.
Thank you very much. Tack så mycket. Peter kommer att stanna kvar här och kommer att kunna svara på era frågor. Ni får gärna applådera. Tack för det.